Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another Scrap Your Scraps Thursday night. I was recently on Pinterest, and you know, Pinterest is the place where you can find all of those wonderful ideas about how to do things. There was multiple um, videos showing how to use your punch board to make your bows, which I'm going to show you because I think it's a good way to make bows. We're going to make bows many ways, one way being with the punch board. So I don't, there's like multiple people who have this video out there just on the punch boards, so I'm not going to list off all the people that have already done this on YouTube, but what I've done is I've modified a couple of things and size-wise, so I want to share that with you. That's more the purpose, and just also the idea of having many options when it comes to making bows with paper. So let's get started. So the first set that we're going to make today is a set that if you have long 12-inch or 10-inch strips, you can make bows out of them. So you can make the wide 1-inch bow, which is commonly seen on Pinterest, or the half-inch bow, which I'm going to show you today. So the first thing you need for your bows is you need to have a piece of paper that is at least 10 inches long, and you're going to want to make a 1-inch by 10-inch strip. So let me grab my cutter to do that. And this is a 2-inch strip by 12, and I'm going to cut it down to 1 inch. And the nice thing about this is if you do have like a 2-inch strip, you can make multiple bows at the same time. And we're going to cut it to a 10-inch length. So this piece is 1 inch by 10 inch. And I'm going to put the other pieces away. I happen to have a scrap piece of paper because the second cut you need to cut is 1/4 of an inch by 1 inch. Now this is already 1 inch long, and I'm just going to cut 1/4 of it. Let's double check. You know what? I better mark this so I don't do this wrong. Get a pen. I'm not worried about marking right on the paper because it is going to be tucked underneath. The ends are tucked underneath. And so I'm just going to sort of try to line that up. I'm doing this just a little bit down on my thing so I can see it myself on my cutter. There we go. That looks good. Whoops, it went flying. Keep this little piece of paper because if you're doing a second one out of that same strip of paper you had, you want to make sure you have that little piece available. Sorry, reaching down to grab it. There we go. So this is your 1 inch by 10 inch bow. What you're going to do is you're going to do all of your cutting on this 10-inch strip, and this becomes the thing that wraps around to hold the bow together. So the first thing you're going to do is put your 10-inch bow in right against the back plate at 2 inches. And then you're going to flip the piece over and do the same thing again. Then you're going to move it down to 5 inches and flip it over again to make the same cut. So you can start to see the pattern of what is going to end up being the bow. Then, then you rotate it 180 degrees and you go to that 2-inch place again. Flip it over. Okay, so this in effect is your bow, and once it's all put together, these will be your tails. So we need to put our piece of paper in longwise and sort of center it a little bit as best we can to give us the tail cut. This side's a better side to see it on. So I'll put that in there. All right, so that is your finished piece. I'm going to move the board out of the way. You're going to need some glue dots. And the first thing we're going to do is decide which side we actually want to have as our bow. On this one, I used the red side. This is another version of a bow I'm going to show you. These are the two we're working on right now. So I think this time I'm going to have the blue side up. So what you want to make sure you're doing is on these two longest pieces, you're just going to round them a little to help you bend them into the right shape. And I just use my fingernails and round it a little on both sides. It just makes it easier to work with because this is actually quite stiff cardstock. Now, if I want this to be my good side, then I'm going to flip it over to the other side, and I'm going to, in the middle of this whole strip, put a glue dot in there. I'm going to use a small glue dot. Sometimes small glue dots are quite big, so I'm just going to play it by ear. This one seems to be the right size, and I'm going to put it right in the center there. So I have my glue dot positioned. Now, I am going to actually fold this end piece, so the good sides together, to create a fold at this end, and I'm going to also do it to the other end, lining it up. Okay, and then I'm going to take this end and about halfway in that glue dot, lining it up with the bow cut on the other side, on the good side. Okay, and I'm just going to push these guys together. Okay, and because we've sort of already rounded this, it should play nicer than it did. So you really kind of want to get those rounded so you get that nice round shape of the bow. And that's it for the bow. So now we need to place this. So you're going to put another small glue dot into the center of the bow. Make sure you got it nicely rubbed down so it comes off easy, because sometimes they don't want to do that. All right, let go. And you're going to start your bow or your ribbon part halfway. You see how it's halfway? And then I'm going to wrap that around the outside like that. And if I've got too much, I'm just going to trim it a little bit. And then that should stick. Now I did my bow using the contrasting color. You could do your bow using the same color. And if you find your paper is really stiff, just go back in and coax it along and try to flatten out some of those fold lines, because you don't really want those fold lines. You want your bow to be nice and rounded. Definitely easier if you have thinner paper. Okay, there we go. So these are the same process. Now, to do the 1/2-inch bow, which I haven't really found anybody online showing you that, you can use the same method, only there's a small trick to it. So let me show you that. I'm going to use that same paper. Where is it here? Okay. So I'm going to use exactly the same measurements, but the only thing I'm going to do is cut this piece in half. Okay, so we're going for a 10-inch piece. Actually, I did a smaller one on this. Let's try using a different measurement on this. So I'm going to go a 1/2 inch by 7 1/8 inches. So let's cut the paper with the right size cutter. So I'm going to do my 7 1/8 inches. And because this is an inch, I'm going to cut this in half, so I'm in effect making 2 bows at one time. And then we're going to cut this to a 1/2 inch, and I need to mark it. And this time I'm going to use this side, so I'm going to mark on the back side just to make sure I get my 1/2 inch there. Okay, there we go. Line it up on my cutter where my marks are. I'm not worried about those marks because they're going to be on the underside, because this time I'm using the red side as my upper. There we go. So this one we're going to use right now, and this one we're going to keep and make a second bow in a moment. Now we already have some of this stuff cut. This is 1 inch already. We still are going to cut a 1/4 inch of this off. So I'm just going to measure where I need to cut. Again, I'm going to use the red side, so I'm not concerned about there being a dot there. Lining up my dots. There we go. Keeping this because it's good to have for the centers of all your bows. So now we've done our cutting. We've ended up with a 1/2 inch by 7 1/8 inch strip and our 1/4 inch by 1 inch strip. So I'm going to just take a minute and kind of get my paper used to the idea of being rounded. All right, okay, because when I put it in, it's going to shift. So now my points that I am actually going to be punching at, I'm going to be punching this side at 1.5 inches, but if you look at the ruler on your punch board, you can see this little grid that's millimeters here. I'm going to lay my paper that far away from the inside cut. So I'm actually doing 1.5 inches, and I'm lining it up there. And the reason I'm leaving that space is because this isn't as wide. You need to shift it this way in order to have a place to put your glue dot. So we are going to do 1.5 inches here, and just kind of make sure that it goes across the board looking even. And I'm going to flip it, measure that 1.5 inches again, or line it up with my eyeballs, whatever works. And if you're looking at it and it looks like it might be a little bit too narrow in the center, just move it out more, move it back more, whatever you need to do to make that work. Okay, so there we go. And we have a little space now that is our place for glue. And then I'm going to, I think I've lost my thing. Whoops. So I'm going to do the same at this end, 1.5 inches, kind of a bit away, lining it up, making sure I've got it enough room for it to have its glue dot. There we go. So I have the ends done. And now, because this is 7 1/8, we are going to be finding the halfway point, which is 3.5 1/16, so just a little over 3.5, and pulling it out. Okay, turning it over, doing the same thing. I usually eyeball the second one because it's just easier for me. So there you go. Okay, you've got your 3 pieces. Same strategy as the last one, but only making it narrower. And you can play around with this and get bigger loopier bows and more smaller bows, depending on what size you're using for your base, right? So I am just going to creep this down, really give it, I want it to almost curl into a circle if I can, because I want to avoid getting those bends in it where it creases and it looks like it's been folded. So I'm really pressuring it. Okay, so we almost have a circle here, so that should work. So now on the back side, I am going to put, now I'm going to use mini dots for this one because my small dots are too big, and mini dots are much tinier. And of course you got to find the mini dots on the paper. So how I get mini dots off, just to make it easier, is I put my mover tool, okay, so that you can just get half the mini dot on your pickup tool or whatever you have, and then you put that in the center, okay, and now you're going to fold your ends like you did the last time and line them up approximately. There probably is going to be some variance because we were making very small cuts and using our eyeballs to line things up. And then you're going to fold that into the halfway point like you did the last time on each side. Oh, you know what? I forgot to have you do the ends, but we can do the ends after. All right, so this side is nice and rounded. This one was a bit crunchy. I'll fix that afterwards. Now, before we go any further, let's get these ends done. And the ends, you do the same thing. You don't put it all the way in. You just put it, I'm eyeballing here. I'm going to go to the end of my flower for this one. There we go. And on this one, I'm going to go to probably where that ends. I'm just eyeballing on my paper, trying to get it centered. That's the most important thing. There we go. Okay. But you should do that before you glue it because it's much easier. All right, so there's my bow. And now I just need to put, now do I want to put the blue? I'm going to keep the red on it. This I'm going to have to trim because I have a narrower space now. So on the back side again, pulling off a little piece of mini dot. And you may need 2 mini dots on this. It depends how everything rounds out for you. Yeah, I think I'm going to need 2 mini dots. One at the beginning and one at the end. Just trim that little bit there. And now I need another mini dot. They're very hard to see. I'm going to put that right on top and fold this over. There we go. And again, I'm just going to play with it a little, give it that rounded look. This one's a little crunchy, so I'll put my finger in there and try to encourage it to round itself out and curl up the back a bit. And there you have your 2 pieces. Okay, so this is the first way to use your board to create your bows. Now, I'm going to show you another way. So what if you don't have long pieces that are 10 inches long and you have shorter pieces? Well, if you can pull together pieces that are 3 inches and 5 inches, you can do this same process. So here I have, I'm just going to move some of my papers aside. I have these short pieces, but the shortest piece I have here isn't shorter than 5 inches. So this, oh, except for this little piece here, but let's pull those out and we'll do an orange bow. Oh, that's going to be boring. We'll try it. As I said, you can always do 2 bows out of most of your scraps. So here I got a bunch of scraps. These, the biggest piece you need is a 5 inch by 1 inch, and then you need a 3 inch by 1 inch, and then you need a 1/4 inch by 1 inch. So I don't think these are going to be helpful to me, so I'll keep those for other projects, but I'm going to use this strip. And because it's small, I can use my smaller cutter. So I need to get these down to 1 inch for sure. So I'm going to do that measurement first. There's my 1 inch. I'm putting this aside because it's still good enough to use for another project. And the first one I'm going to make is my 5 inch. And I'm going to use that for my little 1/4 inch piece. And because this is 1 inch, I can move this down and get my 1/4 inch piece. So there's my little 1/4 inch piece. And I'm hanging on to this when I'm doing other bows. Now, do I have another strip? Oh, I do, lucky. Whew, because I suddenly thought, well, how am I going to get my 3-inch strip? So again, we're going to split this down to a 1-inch strip. There we go, keeping this for the 1/2-inch bow. And I need a 3-inch strip. There we go, putting that aside. So what I have here is a 5-inch strip, a 3-inch strip, and my little wrap. Okay, so the cutting instructions are similar, but because we're not making it out of a whole length of paper, we have to do it in separate pieces. So we're going to take our 5-inch and we're going to move in and put it right against the backboard and punch at 2.5 inches and flip it over and do the same thing on the other side. And we are going to create tails. Oh no, this is okay, so this is our bow part. The larger is the bow part. So we're moving the whole thing down to 5 inches like we did on the first one and flipping it. There we go. And 5 inches turned around 180 degrees and flipping it. So there is our bow piece. Now we're going to make the base piece. So the base piece we're going to punch at 1.5 inches right against the backboard. So 1.5 inches. There we go. And we need to make our tails, so we're going to put that in vertically and sort of eyeball it to center. There's our first tail. And then there's our second tail. So it's exactly the same process, but just in 2 parts from what we did with the longer tail, okay, or the longer piece of paper. So now we put this together similarly as what we did. So I'm going to just curl this a little bit and curl this a little bit. And on the back side, I'm going to put a glue dot, and I can use my small ones because I have more room here. Smalls are much easier to use than the minis. You can fold your smalls if you want to try and do that. Now I'm going to align this as to match up with what's going on in the bow, in the bend of the bow. All right, so, and then of course they're both going to go halfway. All right, so there's my bow. I can pop that up a little. This paper is a little easier to use. It's a little bit lighter weight. Okay, and now I'm going to put a glue dot in the center of the back ribbon. If you rub them hard enough, they come off easier. And I'm just going to align the pattern, the shape, from the back to front. So like that. Okay. And then on the back of the whole thing, I'm going to put a glue dot. Oops, this is the hard part. Really rub it down without flattening your bow. There you go. And I'm going to do our wrap. So I'm going to put that about halfway, wrap it around, and I'm just going to trim it a bit because it's just a little bit easier and match in the center on the other half of the glue dot. So there's our 2-piece bow, or I guess it's 3 pieces if you include the centerpiece. Now you can do this again, like I said, with a 1/2 inch. So we have 1/2 inches that we cut off from our 1-inch piece, and I'm going to cut one again to 5 inches. Whoop, get under there, you. And I'm going to keep that piece, and I'm going to cut the other one down to 3 inches. Make sure it's a nice clean cut. Okay, so I have my 3 and 5 inches. It's exactly the same. And now I'm going to punch it, but I'm going to have to remember to leave that distance from the back. So the 5-inch halfway is going to be 2.5 inches with the distance in the back there. I'm leaving that space. Alrighty, and making sure it's even across the board. There we go. And then I'm going to flip it, do the same on the back. And just eyeball it, make sure you're leaving enough space, so if you need to make it slightly shorter than that space or slightly longer than that space, that's fine. So there we go. And then I'm going to go to my 5-inch, move back again to do my ends and flip. 5-inch. Okay. Turn 180. Line up my 5-inch again. There we go. And flip it. And there we go. So there's my piece. So now I need to do the back of the ribbon. And we're going halfway there at 1.5 inches, but we're moving it out that sort of 3/16 of an inch out from the board is approximately what it is. And we're doing our first punch, and then I usually eyeball at this point, but again, it's 1.5 inches is where you need to put the end of your paper. And now this one is going to have the tail. So I'm going to count. I've got dots, so I can use my dots as a way to look at it. So I think I'm going to go, so 1 row of dots to the 2nd row of dots, and center it on my cutter. Whoops, didn't do that hard enough. There we go. There's my one side. And line that again. There we go. There we go. Oh my goodness. It's just giving me a hard time. So there we go. There's our second piece. Okay. Now this piece is going to be easier, like the last one was, because I can encourage the lighter paper to curl much easier. Okay, and then the build is the same way. So I turn it upside down. I'm going to put a mini dot this time because the big dots don't work. They're too big. Put a mini dot in the center. There we go. Line up my things more or less, and I'm noticing that it's covering up the whole mini dot, so I'm just going to go and put in a second mini dot to make sure that everything sticks down properly, because you don't want your bows coming apart, especially if it's on a gift for someone. Nothing worse than your artwork falling apart. Okay, now I'm going to put a dot in the base. There we go. And I'm aligning the shape with the base. So there you have it. And I just need to flip this over. Oh, I think I forgot to cut this piece, so I need to have a 1/4 inch piece of this. And again, I'm just going to line it up. Use my pen. And cut that piece. I use the bottom of my cutter for this one. It's easier for me to see and line up. Okay, There we go. Keep this one if I ever want to do more. And you can play with, like with the other one, you can play with the lengths and widths of these things to figure out other versions. So I'm going to put a glue dot here. I think I'm going to need 2 at the bottom here because the wrap is quite large compared to the space that I have to wrap around. So I'm going to probably need 2. There's 1. It's going to go around, and I'm going to trim it. There we go. And I'm going to put a little glue dot there. Or here or there. There we go. And there's the finished bow. You can just stick your fingers in there to pop it up again. So there's the 2 bows that are made with 3 pieces. All right, now I have another version of the bow. So we have all these bows that we have created. Well, some of them I created beforehand, but you can see how quickly you can make bows. They don't take much time at all. So this is the last bow, and it's a double bow that I want to show you how to make, and we're cutting it different. So I need to make sure that you pay attention to what we're doing with this one because it is different. So you're going to need that 1-inch piece, those 1-inch pieces again. You're going to need 2 4-inch pieces and a 5-inch piece, and I don't think I have enough of this to work with. Nope. And again, you can do this in a 1-inch bow or a 1/2-inch bow as well. You just repeat the process with a narrower sheet. Let's see, what do I want to do? So I need 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces, 3 of which have to be a decent size. And I need to have enough of something to make it work. Let's do the hearts since Valentine's Day is here. So I need 2 heart strips. But it's not really going in the right direction, so never mind. We'll do honeycomb. Yeah, because I've got enough of that. Alrighty. So I'm going to need 2 4-inch strips that are 1 inch wide. And this paper is 1.5 inch, so I can't get 2 out of 1 paper. But I can use this for an arrow or a bow. So I need 4 inches. So there's my first one. And again, four inches. So there's number 2 of my 4 inches. I need a 5-inch. 1 inch by 5 inch. Whoops. There we go. I'm going to hang on to this because I'm going to divide that for the bow. So I have 1, 2, 4 inches. I have a 5-inch and I need my 1/4 inch now. There we go. Move my cutter so I can see it. And the thing I like about the Tim Holtz cutter here is that it gives me some space to really push down where my fingers are still a fair distance from the cutting blade. So I can remain safe. And there's my little piece I need to wrap. This can be saved for another bow. All right. Okay, so this one is going to be done slightly differently. So the first thing we are going to do is the back. We're going to take one of the 4 inches and we are going to punch it at 2 inches. So we're punching the center on both sides. Okay, so we have our shape. We are now going to put our little tails in. And because this is the 1-incher, we can put it right into the machine all the way to the back of the plate. Okay, so there we go. All right, that's our back. Now we're doing something a little different. We're taking the second 4-inch and we're doing the center section just like we've always been doing, and we flip it. So that's at 2 inches. Okay, but now we're going to use the back of the plate, or of the envelope punch board, and we're going to make the corners round on all 4 corners of this second 4-inch plate. Okay, so there's our first 2 pieces and our little tie. Now this is our 5th plate. We again are going to do 2.5 inches to get the center point and flip it over. And again, we're going to go into the back and cut our corner rounding. Okay, get rid of the plate, get rid of the garbage. All right, so the first thing that we are going to do is we are going to attach our 2 bow pieces together. But before we do that, we are going to do that curling thing. All right, and really get that curled up, as curled as you can get. Because my paper's a little heavy, so I need to make sure that I don't get fold lines in there or cracking happening. Okay, so we are going to, basically the theory is we are going to line these up with the round. We're not gluing them, we're just lining them up with the round. So I'm sort of pinching at that point there and lining this up again with the rounded corners and pinching at that point. This I'm going to have to play with a bit because I didn't work that enough, so that we're not actually in the center section. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing here, turning it over, lining it up with the rounded corners, giving it a little pinch so it has some memory, and again doing it here, give it a little pinch so it has some memory. So now we're not completely round, we're sort of folded over. Okay, then what we're going to do is in the center of the largest piece, so here's our 2 pieces, you can see that this is the larger, we're going to put a small glue dot, not a mini, a small. So we're putting a small glue dot there. Okay, and you can do this in whatever order you want really, but this is the order I tend to like to use. And I'm going to align my other piece, on my smaller piece, on top of that, so that the pieces kind of align together in the center. All right, like that. Then I'm going to make sure my top piece is tucked under. I'm not gluing it, and again I have to make sure this is rounded nicely because it kind of is cracking a little, and so I'm going to make sure that that goes under there, and the other piece is under there as well. Don't want it to crack too much. You want to have a little bit of body there. Okay, and now I'm going to put another glue dot in the center of the base. Rub it down nicely so it comes off easy. There we go. And I'm going to make sure those are tucked under. And again, I'm going to align the centers and push down in the center. And again, I'm not gluing these upper pieces. I'm just making sure that they align. Okay. There we go. So there you have the side view. And now I'm going to put my finish piece, so I need to have another small glue dot. At the back of the base. Make sure you rub it down nicely so it comes off easy. And halfway on the base, I'm going to put my piece of wrap. And I'm going to wrap it all the way around. Give it a little trim if I feel it's too long, and I can play with it better if it's shorter. And stick it down. And if you find that it's misaligning, just twist it a little and it'll behave itself and stay under. And let's fold that a bit. There we go. And there's your finished 2-tier ribbon. And you can curl these up, you can curl the ends up, curl the base up, make them a little more less papery if you like. So there you go. That's what we did here with the red one. And now we have a honeycomb one. Okay, so those are the 3 different ways that I borrowed with my, I guess, manipulation to make smaller versions of the same thing using a punch board, using the envelope punch board. So let's pull that out so you can see all those pretty ones. And then I'm going to show you a couple of other things to do. So the next bows we're going to make are kind of bows that you would put on a present. I had this paper, a 12 by 12 sheet of this paper, and it was disgusting on one side, way too many colors for me. But I really like the other side, but I haven't found a way to use it yet. So I decided that I'm going to make this into gift bows. So I've cut this down from so I've got 3 1-inch by 12-inch sheets, and I've got 3 1-inch by 10-inch and 1 1-inch by 5-inch. So that's where we are for measurements. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, the first step we're going to take is we're going to twist and staple these together. So we're not going to put them one on one like this in a circle. We are actually going to hold one end, twist this over, and then staple it together. So let's see how we can do that. Actually, I'm not going to staple it. I am going to glue it for this part anyway, because I don't want too many staples holding the finished thing together. So I've got like about 1/4 of an inch that I'm overlapping there. Okay, and then when you pull it out, you'll see that you have sort of this crazy 8 sort of thing. So you want to flatten them out, and about halfway, actually let's use the center as our halfway point. So I'm making this center cross, and I'm going to make them sort of oblong, okay, and try to figure out the halfway point. So when I look at it, it's equal sort of on both sides. And then I'm just going to take my stapler and staple in the middle. Okay, so I'm going to do this to all of the 10-inch, or the 12-inch, the 10-inch, and I'm doing something else with the 5-inch. So now we're going to place them together. So we've got 3 of each. We're basically going to align them so that we have sort of a 6 6-point star, I guess is what I'm looking for. And you kind of have to do 2 at like 1 at a time, because you've got to be able to get in there with your stapler and staple them together. So you staple 4 together kind of so that they look a little bit wonky. And then there you go. So you end up with your base looking a little bit like this. So you're going to make the same kind of oblong looking square with 4 pieces for the smaller set of 3, and sticking them in like that. And it does get tricky to get that stapler in there, but you can do it. You just gotta mess around with it a little bit. There you go. And make sure it goes through all the layers. Okay, so there we have the one part of the bow and another part of the bow. Now you're going to stick these guys together. And all right. So basically what I've done is where this is crossing, let's say horizontally, I am now going to have this side crossing vertically, and that should align everything together. And you really do need to do this with a stapler. I'm going to need my bigger stapler. Just a moment. Get the bigger stapler because it has more space between it. Wiggle it in, force your way in. There you go. All the way in. Okay. And then you just pop them open again. Okay. And then this guy is going to sit in the center. And this guy I'm just going to glue in. I actually feel like he needs to be a little bit smaller, a little bit tighter. So how I'm going to do that is, whoops, where I had the fold, I'm just going to fold the 2 pieces together, make it a little bit tighter. Okay. Make sure you have glue that's going to stay on and dry quickly. So let me hold that tight. And now I'm going to glue on this piece and pop it in the opposite direction in the center of the bow. And just put some pressure on it until it dries up. And there you have, whoops, sorry, it's got to stick down, so I gotta hold it longer. There we go. And there is your finished bow for on your piece or your present. And if they have gotten flattened, just pop them up. There we go. Alrighty. So that is using a 1-inch, and that's the one that you see commonly on the internet. I'm going to do the same thing with a 1/2 inch, but I'm now going to have to change the measurements. So what I've done is I've simply taken 2 inches off of everything. I haven't tried this yet, so this is an experiment. We'll see what happens when we put this together. I'm going to be using glue for this because it's a little easier than the stapler, and I don't want to get too many staples together. So again, the theory is you're holding the wrong side up, the rest of the strip is up above you, you bring it down, turn it around again, and so you have like this loop, and then these two things are going to stick together. Oops. So put a little glue there, give yourself 1/4 inch, and you have to give the same amount for everything. And so I've got this loop, and now I'm going to spread it apart where that seam is, and I'm going to make it a crazy 8. And I'm going to make it a very elongated crazy 8. And you know what? I am going to use the stapler. There we go. Nice elongated crazy 8. And stick it together. Okay. So we're going to take our small ones. Doesn't matter if you do small or large first. You're going to get that sort of rectangular shape. And this is small enough, I think I can squeeze in between them and stick them all together at one time. Yep, it worked perfectly. It didn't go right through. That will happen. So I'm going to take that guy out because he's not really holding anything. Push him out the back. There we go. Try that again. Get my rectangle. Put this guy in there. Go in between. There we go. There's my small one. Again, get my rectangle. Put my third one in there. Try to make sure they're all sort of evenly balanced. Okay, there we go. Then this one is going to go inside there. So here's my horizontal. That's going to go vertical. Like that. I'm going to go in. Let's see. Make your way in carefully. There we go. There we go. So there's my base. Okay. And we're going to loop this up. Some glue on the bottom, stick it over top of our staples, make sure it gets stuck down nicely. Okay, and it didn't work out too bad. You just want to make sure. See what happens if the bottom isn't aligned and one side is longer than the other side, you get this sort of loop that pops out and looks a little bit longer. But if you kind of push everything down, it fills in the spaces. There we go. All right, and there's another bow, a thinner bow to put on your gifts. All right, so that's for gift giving. Okay, so this one that we're doing next is a bit of a tricky one. I really moved you in closer. This is a 3x3 piece of paper, and that's a good size for using on an actual card. This is an origami bow. It is complicated, but it's not doable. But until you're really proficient with it, and maybe you get some thinner origami paper to use to, like it does work with craft paper, thin craft paper. You just have to always make sure that you're using your bone folder to make sure that the corners are really tight and that you are cutting and getting right into the tips of things. I have been doing this several times, but I still need to look at the instructions to walk me through it. So I'm going to walk you through it visually. So get yourself a 5x5 piece of paper. And we're going to start with a 5x5 piece of paper before you attempt to do this with a 3x3 piece of paper. Okay, so you're going to take your 5x5 piece of paper, and you're going to make sure that the side you want is face down. So I did this bow with the dark side. I'm going to do it with the light side this time. You're going to fold from the bottom up to the top, or it can be from the left to the right, whatever you want to do to make what we call a mountain fold on your good side. So if you were to pop it up like that, it would create a mountain. Okay, so this is my good side. This is my bad side. All right, so now I'm going to unfold that. Well, first of all, I'm going to make sure that I do a good fold line. Make sure that things are lining up more or less. Now I notice that I've got a little more on this side. I'm just going to trim that because I don't want to run into any trouble when I finish. Everything else is lining up fine, but that corner. So I've got that corner matched now. Now I'm going to unfold this, okay, and I'm going to turn it 1/4 turn and refold it the same way. And make sure you use your bone folder to get that nice crisp fold. Okay, so now I folded it twice. I have this fold and this fold. The next thing we're going to do is take this corner and fold it diagonally, like we're making a triangle, up to the top corner. And you want to make sure that you're lining up, so it's maybe better to bring it down to the bottom corner. I don't know. You can figure out what works best for you. And you want to have that lining up with the bottom edge, so you get a nice point at this corner and a nice point at the top corner. And do this slowly. Don't rush yourself. Make sure that you're getting nice folded edges. So now we have a fold that way, a fold that way, and a fold that way. Okay? We're going to open everything up. We want to have our triangle fold so that it is, or like we really need to have, whoops, I got the right side. We need to have so that your horizontal and vertical folds are in front of you, okay, and your diagonal is going down to the bottom left or the top right, whatever you want to do. And then we are going to pop this, oops, got this the wrong way. We're going to fold it in a way where we're tucking in these corners, okay? Do you see how those are getting folded over? I'm just manipulating the paper to fold the corners over so that when you fold it down, it's a square. Okay, and again, go over your corners. I'll show you again. So where I have my diagonal line, I'm going to pinch those so that they pull into the center and create a square, and on the folds I'm going to fold it tight. So I want to bring this tip down about a ½ inch. I'm going to make it 3/4 of an inch. So I'm just going to put a reference point on here for me. My good side actually should be inside. Why is that outside? Okay, let's go back a step. Opening it up. My inside, okay, so I want these guys to fold this way. To fold this way. No, to fold this way so that my good side is on the inside. Okay, so again, let's do that again. You're taking these guys, you're popping them down, not up. This is your bad side. Popping them down so that your good side is on the inside, making your folds stiff. And now, with all the open ends, the pointy ends, down towards you, we're going to fold this top corner down about 3/4 of an inch. So I'm just going to kind of make a mark on here, because this is my bad side. I'm not worried about it showing. I just need a pen or something to give me about a 3/4 of an inch point. And I want this to sort of align, the 2 points are going to align when I make this fold. So right at that 3/4 of an inch fold line, I'm going to eyeball it and try to make it align with this point. So when I look at it, I can see, if I put my ruler up here, I can see a straight line going down, and it's horizontal to this edge and horizontal to that edge, okay, or perpendicular, I should say. And you're going to make that fold nice and tight, okay. All right, so now we're going to open up everything so that we have your bad side, and you should see a square if you see all the parts. Now we're going to fold those so that they're mountain folds on the back side of the paper. So all you're going to do is you're just going to go between the two edges, and you're just going to fold those. Some of them are already mountain folds, so you don't have to worry about it. But these ones that are turned under, you want to make sure that they're folded in a mountain fold. So you're just pinching. You're not folding anything here or here, just where those lines are that we created that square. Okay, so now I've got a square happening here. All right, and it's all folding in the right direction. Okay, now we are going to take our piece and pinch it again. And this time when we pinch it, we want this to pop down inside. You see what happened there? Because these were all folded mountainside on this side, they automatically sort of popped in when I grabbed the diagonal corners. So here's our paper, grabbing the diagonal corners. We've already folded them once diagonally, and now you'll just see that it just naturally kind of pops into that shape. So we're going to make that a nice clean fold, and you should end up with a sort of a diamond shape here and that look on the top. If you have to go back and review this, please do. Okay, so we're in this position right now, and what we're going to do is we're going to fold this corner to that corner. So we have some guidelines, and this is why you want to work on a bigger piece. Oh, you know what? Before we do that, I'll make your life easier. Going back to this, we're going to fold So we have our one diagonal. We're going to make our other diagonal and fold it. Okay, and then we do our mountain fold, mountain fold, mountain fold, mountain fold. Grab our two corners, maybe it's this one, and poke, so poke that inside. Because we're folding these together, should be poking inside, not outside. There we go, there we go, there we go. All right. Okay, so we have a line down the center on both sides from our folding. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to bring where our center point is and that line is, let's say, okay, down the center here. Make sure all four sides have it. So you're going to now take this and fold it at that center point, aligning this straight edge with the fold that goes down. And if you need to use your bone folder to get a nice crisp edge to align, do. And fold that down. Okay. And now we're going to take the other side and fold it into the center as well. Okay. So originally we're like that. We're taking the front half and folding it down like this. And then we're flipping it over and doing the same thing. And the reason we just flipped it over to make it easier to do, that's all. Okay. So now we have our flip overs here because all the pointy parts are here. We have our flip overs on this side, flip overs on this side. And you should see inside is your good stuff, your good, the side you want. So now what we're going to do is we are going to slowly pull apart the points. And what you will find in the center is this little thing pops into a square pillow. And you want to push that down in the center and make sure it's all nicely flattened. So your image is that you have like a little bow tie here that's sitting on top. Okay? So now you're going to flip it over to the back side again. And on these fold lines that are here, we are going to trim up to this corner. Okay, that's as far as we're going. So we're trimming. Be very careful. Watch once, do twice, or watch twice, do once. And we're going up here to that corner. Up here to that corner. And up here to that corner. So these pieces now are in effect removed from the back. Okay. So now you're going to bring one of them over. Okay. Make sure everything's sort of aligned. You want to make sure that things are kind of lining up at each step. And what we're going to do is we are going to take, so you have your folds there. Okay, we are going to take one of these and we are going to fold it straight down so this bottom line runs along the fold line that exists here. Okay, so this is going to come down here, run a line along the line, and you're going to make it nice and stiff. And you're going to do the same to the other side so that it lines up with that fold. Okay. All right, so you're in this position now. And now you're going to move the top one up like so. And you're going to repeat this activity. You're going to bring it down. Now you have something you can align with. It's a little easier. So you're going to end up with these kind of like these wings. Oop. It's a bit tricky, but you can do it if you take your time. Make sure everything gets lined up and flattened out. Nice, strong folds. Okay. So now you're sitting with your wings at the top, and it looks like a gown here. You're going to fold this gown line. These two separate pieces are going to get folded and align perpendicular to the fold that goes down the center. So you're going to have this on one side, and from that point there, you're going to come down and align. I have to do it turned around so that you're perpendicular with this fold line. Okay, and flatten those out. So you have now got like the front of a kimono. What you're going to do now is you're going to cut up to, if you look very closely, let me see if I can focus just a little bit better. Autofocus. There we go. So if you look very closely, you'll see where this fold line crosses another fold line there. Okay? I'm going to turn autofocus off because what happens is it bounces around too much. All right. So now we are going to cut the center fold line up to that point that I just showed you. So you're going to cut straight up, and we're on you should be on the good side of your paper, the side you want to show, and you're going to cut up there. Okay, and then you're going to take this and you're going to fold this from the top tip so that this point on this fold touches that point on that fold. Okay, so literally from the tip down to the point. Okay, so you end up with something that looks like this. So you've got the fold. Oh, sorry, I forgot to tell you, we got to cut the back too. So when we're doing the back, we're just cutting it up to that point, or if it's, no, we got to go all the way up. So let's go up the center, because all those folds should have been to the front. So you're going to pull all that paper to the front and fold it. Sorry. So you have a gaping hole, because this is going to be the ribbons of the tails of your bow. Okay? So there you are. So when you flip this over, you'll see you've got your bow, the bow ribbon part already in the center there. Okay? And let's flip the entire thing over so we don't see any of our fold lines. They're all in the back now. And what we're going to do is we're going to take these guys and just play with them to round them a little bit, because you want to make sure that you're not going to crease the paper in a wrong spot. And you're going to tuck them into that bow and push them down as far as they will go, aligning the fold of the bow wrap with the cut line that you have on the actual ribbon part. Okay, and we'll do the same to the other side. We're going to kind of make it go circular so that we don't fold it in the wrong spot. We're going to tuck it under and align these cut lines with the fold line that shows on the box. Okay, so this cut line aligns with that aligns with that cut line across. Okay, so we're at this position right now. Then the next thing we're going to do is our cut for the ribbon. I'm going to estimate, you can, let's see, what are we going to make this? We're going to make this, all right, I am going to go from this corner to sort of central in the width here. I'm going to go, let's see, an inch. So I'm going to cut from this tip here about an inch into the middle of this piece here. So I'm going to go right there. Okay, and there we are. Yes, pieces will fall off. I'm going to do the same thing, cutting about an inch into the center. Okay, and more pieces will fall off. And then I'm going to cut from this corner into where I finished my cut. There we go. That'll come off. And if it's not a clean square, make sure you go back in and clean it up a little bit. There we go. And then this point into the center again. There we go. And there is your finished bow. Okay? So that's another way to use an origami technique to create a bow for your cards. And as I said, the thinner the paper, the easier it is to do this. If you only have, not heavyweight, but heavier than origami paper, pattern paper, then you want to probably do larger, but you can do the smaller size bows. You just have to be very careful about making sure all of your fold lines are crisp. Okay, and that is it for today. So you've found a couple of ways to make bows and ribbons for gifts and cards and tags and whatever. And I hope that I was able to share some of the things I've found on the internet in a group so that you have, one video to go to see a couple of different methods of how to create these bows. So have a great week. If you like this video, please don't forget to like it on YouTube, and if you could please subscribe to my station, I would think that would be awesome. And if you like the stuff you see on my station, please recommend it to your friends and have them subscribe as well. Have a great week, and I'll see you next week. Bye.